is Missing Real, okay? With Mike Darrigo. I bury that cockroach. Hey listeners, we're back again with another awesome episode, and we're still all under quarantine here, so it's a great time for podcast recording and listening. And this time around, I got something a little different for you. It's actually going to be a good one. No, actually, seriously, I have another special guest with me today, a good friend he's a guy who doesn't just watch movies, he makes movies. Yeah, he writes, directs, and produces. Let me just bring on my good buddy here. So I'll say hello to my little friend, Michael Goldburg. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome to The Real. How are you, sir?
I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to be here too, because we're both in totally different heres. You know, we can't hang out. We're quarantined.
This is the quarantine edition. Yes,
it's true, but you know what? It's all the better. You know, it's just we got to keep on doing what we do and bring entertainment to the masses and stay healthy.
I know. I'm glad we're able to connect this way. Yeah, it's just great to be here. I'm glad to see you and glad to talk about some movies.
Yeah, we're going to do that. It's just like these times are just like apocalyptic, man. I mean, even today I was hearing there was some damn tornado watch in New York City. Like, what, are you kidding me? A tornado in New York City? I thought we had it pretty bad. I'm like, all right, so maybe we should change the topic today. We're going to do Twister starring Bill Paxton.
Oh, man.
Yeah, man, game over, man.
We definitely don't need a Twister right now.
No, we're not going to do a Twister or a Twister episode, no. But what we are going to do, and this is your inspiration, you know, your suggestion, which I thought was awesome, and I'm glad we're doing this. We're going to do a DePalma double dip. We're going to go into two movies by the very, very unique director, Brian DePalma. One of these movies everybody knows and everybody loves, and one of these movies probably not many folks have heard about, but it's still a great film, and we definitely want to shed some light on it. And you picked it as one of your favorites, too. So how does DePalma figure into your current mindset as a filmmaker?
I think I originally got inspired by DePalma when I was younger. Gonna date me, but like 80s, 90s, growing up watching films. He's a student of Hitchcock, and I had originally gotten into Hitchcock, and then through Hitchcock to DePalma. And I mean, his passion for movies is one of the biggest things that comes through with him. His love of cinema, his passion of cinema. You see, a lot of influences in his films, not just Hitchcock, but other people too. And his films are so stylish. He was one of those directors coming up whose love of cinema and love of making movies just burst off the screen. And you just couldn't help but get engaged by the films, the way he shot them, his techniques, the stories. It was very much like a big influence, particularly when I was younger.
Well, his movies have been, I'm not going to date us either, but yeah, his movies have been around since the 70s and 80s. Let's talk a little bit about DePalma, because I don't think I saw any of his films until maybe Carrie in 1978, or maybe it was after 78, but that was the first, I think, film ever adapted from a Stephen King novel, and that was actually Stephen King's first novel. So DePalma and King both sort of hit the mainstream right there. Very popular movie. But Brian DePalma, strangely enough, was born on September 11th. It's a strange birthday to have. One of his first films, I don't know if you've seen this since you're such a DePalma aficionado. Did you ever see The Wedding Party?
I have seen only some clips from The Wedding Party, but yes, I know it's also Robert De Niro's first movie.
Very early film. I think it was shot in 63, but never actually got released until 69. But it's a really young De Niro in there. I definitely want to catch that movie. I never saw that, but I have to see a whole lot of De Palmas. And I was actually a little bit intimidated to do this whole episode because I'm not sure how many De Palma movies I've seen, but I've seen like the main ones. I saw I guess Mission Impossible, Snake Eyes, and Blowout, and Raising Cain, and of course Scarface and Carlito, and all those. But yeah, I missed some critical ones. Like, I never saw Dressed to Kill. I have to see that. I never saw. Did he do Sisters, or was that somebody else?
He did Sisters.
Sisters, or one of the Sisters. I think there are two versions of Sisters also. There was a remake.
Okay.
But yeah, the ones that we're going to talk about today, at least I'm pretty familiar with. So we're on, comfortable ground for me, I think here. I love his techniques. Like you were saying, like he's a student of Hitchcock. And again, I'm sort of a dipshit film aficionado because I don't watch a lot of Hitchcock movies. I know I've seen them, but they never like took hold on me, like The Birds and Psycho. I saw them, but I didn't like get completely blown away by them. Maybe if I look at them through a filmmaker's eyes, I could get it. But the use of like the long pans to sort of substitute for storytelling, and the diopter and the split screen that DePalma always uses. You're always watching, like at certain points there's two images going on, and if you're not paying attention to both images, you're losing some of the narrative.
Yeah, he used those a lot. He kind of, he pioneered it when he was making his early films, and then he like kept using them in his later films, commercial films. A lot of them, some of the techniques you mentioned, he uses to increase the suspense.
Well, yeah, because you don't know where that camera is panning to. Like, where's it going? What's going to happen when it reaches its destination? What are we going to see?
To sort of slow suspense sequences down in like a Hitchcockian way, and so you are getting these long panning shots, tracking shots, crane shots. He's really laying out the geography as a way to involve you, in the action. It's and the suspense. Also using split screen as like an immediate way of like showing you someone and showing you what they're looking at the same time versus just parallel editing.
Yeah, there's less cutting in his films and more just like panning and split screen. It's sort of like a smoother viewing experience. And it sort of holds you. It holds you in that moment because every time there's a cut, you might realize, oh, I'm watching a movie, but it's a little bit of a different technique that he does there.
He's kind of like what Hitchcock used to say, and which DePalma would say is sort of like pure filmmaking, pure visual storytelling. So you'll have long sequences in a lot of his films that don't have any dialogue. A little more rare today, but like a lot of his films will have these long extended sequences that are just completely visual shots. You're following action, you're following character, but there's no dialogue. And in fact, one of the films we're going to talk about starts with a very long extended sequence where there's really not much dialogue. Kind of a master of that. He's using music, but it's pure, it's other than that, it's just very visual.
I like that too, because it's now today's films, it's all about, everyone's got ADD and nobody can like sit still for very long. You got to have like an explosion or somebody saying some snappy dialogue every 5 seconds, and nobody shuts up and just lets the technique and the craft, come forth. And DePalma was great. I love the split screen. And I wanted to ask you, since we're talking about split screen, there was a director who took this split screen business to the extreme and tried an experimental movie. If you've ever seen the director, Mike Figgis, who did Leaving Las Vegas and other good movies, he did a movie in 2000 called Time Code with 4 screens simultaneously showing the same damn movie, but they were shot by 4 different camera people. And it all follows the same narrative, but from 4 different angles. And sometimes the camera goes off into a different place, but all the stories intersect.
I honestly don't remember the movie that well.
Nah, it wasn't the most memorable movie, and I definitely wouldn't sit and watch it 4 times to see what happens in every frame. It was kind of like the Brady Bunch, it's like all these squares and just things going on in the squares. But yeah, it was fascinating as a concept, but overall, if it was a slightly more engaging movie, I would have liked it a lot more. But it was cool. That's like DePalma on speed. Like the split screen's not enough. I'm going to split it even more and give you four images to look at until like you lose your mind.
He's very, I guess I would say about DePalma, I haven't seen Time Code in a while, but his use of like not only split screen, but the other techniques, they're definitely not random either. They're definitely, he uses them in a very precise way. Everything's very choreographed, including the long takes. And so, yeah, when you see them in a movie, I was actually I watched a little bit of Carrie today. A double reference for you here since we're talking about DePalma.
Yeah.
I'll mention this early. There's a terrific documentary about DePalma called DePalma.
I've seen that.
And it's on Netflix. It's a great documentary. It kind of gives a very nice overview of his whole career and all the films that he made.
Yeah, no, I love that. That was also helpful maybe to prep us for this podcast, not knowing it at the time, but yeah, when I watched it.
He quickly mentioned that, he was using a lot of split screen for suspense because it works so well, but when he tried to use it for an action sequence and he felt that it didn't work.
No, it doesn't. It's true. I agree with that.
And your attention is divided in like weird ways as a viewer. Yeah,
there could be like a POV shot of two combatants inside there's a POV shot of each person in a fist fight and you see what's happening. Like, that wouldn't work at all. That would be stupid. I don't know. Well, one of the coolest De Palma things I remember, and it wasn't much else about the movie that I do remember, is in '98 in Snake Eyes, he did an opening 20-minute tracking shot, but I believe it was actually only a 12-minute shot that with some clever editing, it appears seamless. Just Nick Cage going around like some, boxing exhibition in Vegas or something. But that was a very cool. I mean, his technique is always there, no matter what movie. There's always that touch is there.
I remember that. I saw Snake Eyes once, and I do remember that scene, that sequence, and I remember liking a lot of those scenes, but I don't remember the movie that well.
Right, that was the movie. That was really the centerpiece of the movie. And after the first 10 minutes, so you kind of like, okay, what else? But yeah, it was noteworthy. It was cool. So now, all right, so we're talking about a lot of De Palma, but let's get to the movies themselves because we're going to do two movies today. Strangely chosen. I'm going to ask you why we chose this one exactly, but the first movie we're talking about is going to be 2002's Femme Fatale. So other than the fact that I own the DVD, mostly because it's got a very smoking hot Rebecca Romaine Stamos in the movie, I don't know, I just bought it on impulse, but why are we discussing Femme Fatale today?
Well, Mike, I think, let's see. I mean, Femme Fatale is definitely a cult film now. It's kind of considered one of De Palma's cult classics. His films are kind of divided into two types of films that he's made. He's kind of made his quote unquote De Palma suspense, thriller films. And then he's made his more sort of commercial films, mostly gangster films. So and this one falls in the De Palma suspense thriller Hitchcockian. And some of them, I think, have been more successful than others, and this is one of the more successful ones.
Did it really do well? I didn't check its box office take, but I know it's like probably a really overlooked film.
It is. It's one of those underlooked gems. I don't know if it did that well. I didn't check the box office either. He had just come off what was a box office bomb and a critical bomb, Mission to Mars.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that. That has some very tense moments in there, too, overall.
I never saw Mission to Mars.
It's a good one. Yeah, watch it. It's really good. It's got this great scene where somebody's running out of air. That's like so De Palma. It's like the tension is just like, it's like in your throat. It's really good.
He felt kind of, I think, burned out by that. That was the last Hollywood film he made. And then he made Femme Fatale in France, and it was backed with French financing. And I think for him, it was a return to even in the documentary, he says it, that he wanted to return to a purely cinematic film about cinematic ideas.
It was very much so. I found it just dripping with style, but it was really engaging and a lot of surprises and twists in there.
I totally agree. That's a good way of putting it. And it was there's some outrageous things in it. I feel like somehow the movie transcends that.
Yeah, there's some moments in there where I was like, what? But it's just in a good way. Admittedly,
it's not a realistic sort of, it starts off as a heist film, really. And even the heist isn't really that realistic, but it's so grounded in this amazing technique, this precision, like how he's visually constructing the story, that you're just completely involved in the film from the get-go. I just feel like other filmmakers taking that same story, I don't think they would have been able to do it, but he's a big player in the film. That's what I realized, particularly in Femme Fatale, Brian De Palma is basically the other star of the film.
His DNA is all over it. His imprint is right there. Let's go over a couple of moments in the movie. I want to just see how you recall or react to these moments. Starting off the film, I think the very first scene, you've got Rebecca there in the room, in a hotel room, watching a movie. This is something that just struck me as I was watching the movie. There's a film on the TV in her hotel room, and I told you I wasn't going to do any quiz questions, but I lied. Do you know what movie she was watching in the hotel room on that television there?
Yes, she's watching Double Indemnity.
Correct, sir. There, you see, I can't stump you. I can't. All right. But here's something you don't know probably. That television that she's watching in the hotel room, that big clunky silver tube television, that model TV is a Sony Trinitron, which I used to own. And I was so happy to just get rid of that big hunk of shit because it was so heavy. And I was moving one day and I had to have the movers carry it downstairs. I just couldn't donate it. I couldn't get Salvation Army to pick it up. Nothing. I was just going to dump it on the curb. But then as the movers were carrying it down the steps and some guy next door on his porch says, "Hey, I'll take that," and we just like hoisted it over the fence, and you got yourself a new Sony Trinitron TV, man. It's just like a beautiful ending to that television's story.
I had a Sony Trinitron, I think similar to that one. Also, that one ended up on the curb, though.
Yeah, it needs to, because we can't have televisions that are more than 2 dimensions anymore. We got to have flat screen or nothing, man. I can't. There's just no point. Move on.
I love the connection.
Nah, that was fascinating, though. I just like, oh my God, look at that. I mean, that won't be in the commentary. DePalma is not going to tell you he had that same maybe it was. Maybe he owned that same television. He wanted to get rid of it, so he brought it to the set. Rebecca Romijn watches it, and then that's it. They trashed it. The filmmaking technique of DePalma is very, very present here, and the director of photography, I don't know if it's different in every movie, but this time around it was Terry Arbogast. I don't know if you're familiar with all of his DPs, but
I'm not familiar with him. He has worked with world-class cinematographers, one of whom I had the pleasure of meeting once, Vilmos Zsigmond, classic cinematographer who shot a lot of great films for De Palma, Steven Spielberg, among other people, Robert Altman. I felt fortunate I met him, I think, maybe a year before he passed away. But he was one of De Palma's go-to cinematographers for a while. And I got to talk to him a little bit about De Palma, among other people. But so I do not know the DP of Femme Fatale, though.
You have to have a good DP for a De Palma movie. Otherwise, maybe I don't know if De Palma ever is his own DP, because he knows exactly what he wants in these shots or the split screens.
I imagine that he storyboards heavily.
That would be very necessary.
I think like Hitchcock in that regard, the shots are so precise and so detailed and so specific. It seems very mapped out. And so that would obviously be really helpful to a DP. For sure, I got the sense that this was heavily storyboarded and conceived prior.
Yeah, it does look like it was very well planned out. So, all right, but the movie takes place in the beginning. It's at the 2001 Cannes Film Festival. There's the heist. There's some sort of $10 million gold diamond snake brassiere. Rebecca Romijn has some accomplice there who's very, very, strict and brutal with her. But then, of course, she slips him. I don't know if we're doing spoilers here, but there's some spoilers here. And watch the movie otherwise, okay? Watch it and then listen to our podcast. I like some of the things in the beginning of the movie. The only thing I didn't like was, although I like the music by Ryuichi Sakamoto, great composer. The beginning of this movie, the opening scene, how there's like those extended takes, those long shots. This movie has like a 15-minute opening sequence where the music just plays, and that piece of music just goes on and on. It does not stop. I think until the end credits start rolling, but it's just so damn long, and it keeps you in the moment. There's not much dialogue after that, but it's a cool scene. There's a scene where Rebecca and another woman are getting a little girl-on-girl action behind the frosted bathroom door, and the guy is watching them, and that's probably better, more entertaining than anything in the film festival. Moulin Rouge, fuck that, man. But it was cool. I like that. And then some dude gets tased in the bathroom while he's taking a leak. That must hurt, man, because in addition to the electrocution from the taser, you've already got a pee stream going into the water. I would think that would up the voltage, wouldn't it? I don't know. That was.
And I see some electricity happening there.
I think there was some crackle going up the pee stream. I don't know if they added that. Entertaining opening sequence. Then, she escapes to France. Then you see that the Eiffel Tower is reflected in the window of the car as she's driving by, which is a great technique in how to establish her location without actually saying Paris, like in a subtitle or a big establishing shot. I thought it was very cinematic. She's in Paris. She's like discovered by this French couple, and they think she's someone that they know named Lily, and she almost gets killed and tossed off a balcony by that accomplice she escaped from, and she lands on a big pile of bubble wrap or something, and she survives. So they take her in. They think she has amnesia, and there's a scene when she's in this room in the house when they leave her there, and there's like a fish tank It's raining outside. There's a big storm, and the fish tank appears to be leaking. Do you remember this? This is sort of a premonition or like a hint about something in the movie, but I don't really know. But then she sees her double. Her double comes in and commits suicide in a game of Russian roulette. And then she just takes over her persona, flies off to America 7 years later. She meets Peter Coyote on the plane. He's some ambassador, or he's about to become some ambassador.
Yep.
And then she's like the wife.
Yeah, after she meets him, then it jumps to 7 years later.
All right, it's 7 years later, and then Antonio Banderas is trying to shoot her picture because she's like Mrs. Watts, who nobody's ever seen. It's like this big scandalous thing that he gets a photograph of her. And then like the security guy, played by Greg Henry, calls him, and he offers to buy the photo. But I'm thinking, like, what did he shoot the photo with? Like a Polaroid one step? Because it's 2008, right? We have the internet, don't we? And if you take a picture, you probably have it on file somewhere or in the cloud. I would think that there's no point in trying to offer to buy the photo, to prevent blackmail or whatever he was going to do with it. That part didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'm not sure.
True. A little bit of a hole there. Yeah, good point. Even in 2001, when the movie was made.
This point after the 7 years is supposed to be 2008. So anyways, I'm willing to overlook that glaring plot hole and just go on with this wonderful movie that we're watching. And yeah, there's a girlfriend, and she gets murdered by these thugs that are trying to chase Romaine down. And Antonio he shows up in the hotel with her, and he's like taking on this other persona. Like, oh, I'm very. He's like in full-on Puss in Boots mode. Oh, I don't think I lost my disc in your room. I hope you could help me find it. You do most of your best work in bed. I know I do. He's trying to be very intimidating and very, very effeminate and gentle and dainty, and it's funny. He's really funny in this, but she's like all difficult to peg. Like, what's up with her? And she's got like this asthma attack going on, but at the same time, she's strip teasing and trying to get it on with him. So like, what's the story here? She's definitely got an agenda.
She might be a femme fatale.
She is a femme fatale. And if she was using any of her skills to get away from the thugs and thieves who she, double crossed, she would just use all those Mystique X-Men shape-shifting skills and just like change her appearance and just look like somebody else. But she doesn't do that. I don't know why.
Yeah, good point.
All right, they come up with this whole thing that she wants to be held for ransom, get the money from her husband, and blackmail him and stuff. And Banderas doesn't realize that he's being taken for a ride also. And at some point, he's dead. She gets thrown off the bridge and in the water. And then she awakens in the bathtub where she was earlier. And she sees her double come back in. And this is that really cool Hitchcocky, twisty part of the movie. And then she stops her double from committing suicide. And I guess like the whole thing was a dream, basically, right? And there's still more that comes up. But essentially, she wakes up. She's two different people. There's a doppelganger involved. And I think that earlier when you see the fish tank leaking, is that supposed to be a clue that she's really not in reality? Like something's a little bit off? Maybe there's other clues in the movie that I didn't notice?
Yes. When I first saw the movie, that was one of my, there's a lot of great scenes, but that was one of my favorite scenes, was that where she wakes up after this, she gets thrown off a balcony and she wakes up in this strange couple's place, realizes that she's the doppelganger of some woman and they've mistaken her for her. But there's this whole water theme. She wakes up and the first image is, the ceiling with water running on the ceiling being reflected. And then when she goes into the living room and sees her doppelganger come in, it's been raining outside. And yes, you see this aquarium that's leaking water kind of strangely. It kind of conjures a dream-like imagery and sense, like something's off, but you're not quite sure what it is.
Yeah, so multiple viewings might show some other clues there, but that was the only thing that kind of like registered with me, and I thought, what's up with the fish tank? And it seems to make perfect sense later on. Like, yeah, it was a dream, and not everything is perfectly in place as it should be, but really cool. I love the whole narrative, and in the end, like, there's a really amazing twist, involving the necklace that's hanging from the rearview mirror of the truck and how it averts somebody's death, and it's just or somebody else gets dead instead, but in a very cool graphic way. Like, it's a really satisfying ending to this movie, which if nobody has seen, I'm not going to ruin it, so you just watch this damn movie. It's really good.
There are some great twists. That's one, actually, and water gets used again, if you remember, when she gets thrown off the bridge. That's how she ends up coming back sort of through the dream and into reality again. This water is like a medium of her sliding in and out of her dream state. It reminded me, like that point in the movie reminded me of Mulholland Drive with the doppelganger, and we're in this dreamlike state. I started getting some Lynchy vibes.
Yeah, Lynch is another weird filmmaker who I love, just because you never know what you're going to get with that guy, and especially things like Dune. But yeah, I'm very happy we have those things.
You're right. There's some great twists that happen later. I guess it's sort of like the movie ends up being, well, yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but it sort of shows like through her dream, she sort of sees two paths that her life can take. And so the whole wrapping up of the movie is sort of this what happens when she learns things from the dream that she then takes into her own life and changes her destiny and the destiny of those around her.
Well, it's really just the other her, and I guess Banderas. But if there's the other her, does the other her get the good life, and then she gets like whatever? We don't know, because she knows she's seen it all, and she sends her twin off to a better destiny. But her own, we don't really know. It looks like it's going in the right direction though. Like things seem to turn out pretty well for both of them.
They both kind of get some redemption at the end, for sure.
One of them goes on to host House of Style and have a successful career in films. It's great, yeah.
If you like, I mentioned Mulholland Drive, but it also has some like Memento vibes going on as well.
Oh yeah, well that's told in reverse,
It's so, I guess, like one of the things about DePalma, and one of the reasons I like the movie, is that it's sort of a guilty pleasure. There's like a lot of pleasures in seeing like how everything is choreographed and how it's so precise. And how these twists work. It's like clockwork. That's one of the pleasures of his cinema, and that it really comes through in this. It's, on one hand, it's kind of this like crazy, fun, sort of surreal mystery thriller, but it's got some outrageous stuff too. But it seems to kind of transcend it as this De Palma movie. There's a lot of other films that are kind of like being reflected through the film too. Films like Blow Up, the Antonioni movie. And then with Hitchcock, there's like quite a bit of like vertigo going on. But the fun thing about this movie, it's almost like De Palma's referencing some of his earlier movies.
Yeah, he probably is. He's bringing out like his greatest hits. It's like a concert. It's a really great representation of what he's capable of, and when he just works without so much studio interference, I guess, or.
Yeah, he wrote the script as well.
Yeah, no, that's it. He's got like total control, and it's really, really well done. Very stylish, and definitely worth watching. Anybody who hasn't seen it.
Yeah, highly recommend particularly the two sequences that are sort of repeated, in the film. The one where there's the impending accident with the truck, just as like also like an exercise in like highly skilled suspense with using slow motion as well. Another technique that De Palma uses a lot. He's a magician, just to see how this is engineered and how he's playing the audience the entire time. He's kind of distracting us on the one hand with something and then revealing something with the other hand. Like he'll talk about it being like pulling the rabbit out of the hat, like a magician. And there's a lot of pleasure in that. Sort of like.
Well, yeah, but all along the way, there's so much suspense and anticipation. And then like when you get like this nice sudden diversion from where you expect things to go, it's really excellent. Good stuff. But at this moment, I think it's time for a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with you. Missing Real Podcast. Yeah, it's pretty childish, and most certainly not for children. So what do? How do we entertain our young with the podcasting brilliance I bring you in Missing Real? Well, don't worry, there's a solution. Missing Real Junior. Yeah, it's a kid-centric, family-friendly podcast, completely free of all profanity and discussion of sex or drugs, not even children's Tylenol. So yeah, let your kids listen to it. Learn. Let them experience the movies they weren't alive yet to experience and enjoy that you did. Star Wars and things like Star Wars. A couple of episodes are already online and ready for you to play, and they'll hopefully keep your kids entertained so you can get on with doing other things, and you're probably trapped in your homes right now going stir crazy. So yeah, you're welcome. Missing Real Junior, available wherever podcasts are podcasted, starring Uncle Mike. So we're back. But now it's time for the main course. We talked about some Femme Fatale, but now it's time for the De Palma movie pretty much everybody knows, loves, and just can't get enough of. And one of Al Pacino's most definitive roles of all time, Scarface. You don't mind talking about Scarface, do you, Michael?
Not at all.
One of De Palma's sort of, flops, but I think we deserve to give it a little bit of attention here.
Really? You think it's a flop?
Oh, yeah, the original was so much better, man. None of that color or blood or cursing. I can't. I don't know. Modern films. What junk? But yeah,
it's only the original. Only the original.
Yeah, only the original, man. Don't muck things up. All right, so we have Scarface, 1983. I think De Palma was also coming out of a slump at that point because the movie he did prior to that was the 1981 movie The Hand, which was really about a hand. Michael Caine loses his hand and it takes on a life of its own.
Hold on. Hold on.
All right. Yes.
That was an Oliver Stone movie.
Was it Oliver Stone, or did De Palma have anything to do with it?
Nothing to do with it.
Why am I looking? All right, that was in my research. I have to cut that whole part out. Wait. Oliver Stone directed and wrote The Hand?
That was Oliver Stone's first film.
Yeah. I will trust you. Yes. All right. So forget about that. All right. Scarface, 1983. At the time, Brian De Palma was offered and turned down Flashdance. You think that was a good move on his part?
I think it was.
Flashdance was a hugely successful film with a very similar soundtrack of 80s dance rock shit. Yeah, no, I think he made the right choice. I don't know. Unless there was like a huge gunfight in Flashdance at the strip club, I don't think it would have helped at all.
Maybe he could have made Flashdance into something really extraordinary.
Instead, we end up with Scarface. All right, well.
He was coming off of, he did have a box office problem prior to this. He made the film Blowout, was the film that he made prior, which was one of his De Palma suspense thrillers with John Travolta.
And I remember that being a pretty decent movie.
It's a good film. It's one that Vilmos shot, Vilmos Zsigmond, who I met. Yeah. But it didn't really do that well. It had a real downer ending.
It definitely did, but a very poetic downer ending.
He was coming off of the success of Dressed to Kill before he made that, and then he made another one of his own sort of suspense thrillers, and Blowout did disappoint. So Scarface was kind of bouncing back into a more commercial genre film for him.
I don't know. I think Blowout might have been a little bit more successful if Travolta just busted out a couple of dance moves, but he was just a sound guy, So oh well, he wasn't sampling Bee Gees in that movie.
He was holding a mic, kind of like what you're doing now.
I guess so. Well, we all got to start somewhere. So we got Scarface in 83. Love this movie. And a lot of people love this movie, especially like the hip hop culture. Every rapper that ever made it anywhere always cites Scarface as an influence. And in 2003, when the film was re-released theatrically, the studio wanted to rescore it with a whole rap soundtrack. And De Palma wasn't having any of it. Like, you're sticking with the original cheesy 80s soundtrack, which I believe it helps define the whole feel of the movie. There's a lot of great music in the movie. I mean, the Giorgio Moroder stuff is wonderful.
Amazing score.
It's very moody and atmospheric, and there's like a lot of emotion in there. It's really good stuff. A couple of the songs are cheesy, but I love them anyway. We'll be listening to some of them along the way during this podcast, I think. But it's a great soundtrack. It really is. Debbie Harry in there, and she even sticks yayo in her lyrics, and yayo, was the drug term, right? It was like that was the for the coke or whatever the I'm not a drug addict, so I don't know, but I think yayo was the coke, was the heroin, whatever the hell they were peddling over there.
Coke.
Whatever that white stuff was all over his nose.
Apparently, I got a little trivia. I learned this, was that it was not in the script, and Pacino improvised that, like I guess Cuban slang maybe for coke, and he dropped it in, and it's great. De Palma liked it, so they kept it.
Yeah, well, Oliver Stone, maybe the reason why I got confused with The Hand and all that crap earlier, Oliver Stone wrote the screenplay. I think De Palma wrote the original script. And while De Palma was writing this script, he already had a coke habit of his own while he was writing. And he apparently moved to Paris to kick the coke habit and instead got hooked on croissants, but it's still, it was a good move, I guess. He substitutes cocaine with Madeleines, but he ended up with a really great script in the end. So whether you do it on drugs or not, the final product was worth it, right? It was good. And you have more information. It's more realistic, like the coke snorting technique or whatever. It was research, I'm sure.
De Palma, I don't think, really had a hand in the script. It was all Oliver Stone. He did a lot of research. He spent a lot of time in Miami. He hung out with drug dealers. He was also working with police, and I think even talked to the FBI. He did a very deep dive into cocaine business and talked to some dangerous people, real people. that all got into the film, and that's part of what makes the film seem so authentic, is that, you know, it started with the script and Stone did his homework.
All right, but yeah, we gotta verify all of this. So you go out there with these drug dealers and see if they really know how to use a chainsaw and things like that. About the chainsaw sequence too. Originally the movie was rated X by the MPAA, so it had to be recut a couple of times. And I think the only scene that really had anything to do with this X rating was one little shot of a severed arm hanging off of the shower curtain rod. But in the end, after recutting the film, and they, you know, after like a panel of experts, including some, I guess, DEA agents or people like that, gave the film an R rating and said, oh, it's anti-drug. You know, they approved the final cut. You know, DePalma just went back and used his first cut anyway and didn't admit it until years later. But, you know, I guess the 80s were timid. You know, they weren't ready for this kind of violence and stuff back then.
And the interesting thing about that scene is that you don't actually see the chainsaw, like, actually going into anybody. It's all sort of the reaction to it. It's blood.
That's true.
You see it start to go into, you know, his friend's head, but then it cuts away. And it's all about the reaction to the violence. It's just the power of suggestion was so disturbing for people.
Yeah, but then you have the other end of the spectrum and Tobe Hooper, you know, with the Leatherface. Let's just show everything. I don't care. Let's just take everybody apart and then wear their skin. But that was probably X-rated too at the beginning. I don't know, Texas Chainsaw. But no, we're talking about De Palma now. I don't go off on these tangents here. Whatever the movie was rated, I'm sure when I saw it, I was pretty young, probably not quite old enough to be seeing these R-rated movies, but I saw it anyway. I saw it on cable. I loved it. I had it on VHS, of course, watched it millions of times. Now, at this point in the show, Michael, if you really feel like you know, letting loose and like cursing or dropping a couple of F-bombs, feel free, because the F-bomb was spoken 207 times in Scarface. I think it set some sort of record. So fuck it, man. If you want to say fuck, just
amazing.
Say it, man. No one's gonna censor us. It's okay.
All right, fuck it, Mike. All right.
Fucking A. That's right. That's the spirit.
I was not aware of that. I saw that as well. That's interesting.
Well, you know, one of the special features on the DVD or whatever was there's a F-bomb and a bullet counter, and they keep rising during the movie, especially in the last 10 minutes. I don't actually know the number of bullets that were fired. I'm not sure that can be quantified, but it's a lot.
There were many.
It's a lot of fucking bullets. Yeah.
So during the sequence of the massive shootout at the end, you were probably going to talk about.
Oh, I missed that part. Really? There is? Oh my God. This movie must be awesome.
Pacino grabbed the wrong end of his gun, that was shooting blanks, and scorched his hand. He had to go to the hospital. He couldn't work for 2 weeks. So while Pacino's in the hospital, they're like, well, let's shoot everything without Pacino. So they basically just shot. De Palma said something like every conceivable angle and idea of how people can shoot each other in that final raid scene. Like, we shot it. He even had like his buddy Spielberg show up, shooting off a few rounds.
Oh, he shot a few rounds? I thought he just filmed one quick scene with the grappling hook or something like that. They let him direct one shot.
In the documentary, he says Spielberg actually shot a couple rounds off.
They probably just filmed everybody who was shooting at or shot by Tony Montana. And after that, Pacino recovered and his hand was all better. That's like an amazing, unforgettable sequence that everybody did. We just want to fast forward to that. But the movie, all the way through, it's just a fascinating film, great characters. I mean, we don't even have to say anything about Al Pacino. He's just the man. But the rest of the cast is pretty spot on. Stephen Bauer. I really like Stephen Bauer as Manny. And he was actually the only pure Cuban in the cast, although he still needed a dialect coach. It's true. I mean, maybe just a few things. He wasn't back home enough. And John Travolta was considered for that role. But it's probably for the best that he didn't get it, because he needed a dialect coach or two as well, to try to get the Cuban inflections in, or just be like, what, where.
I heard that Pacino actually lived with Stephen Bauer's family a bit, and that was part of his research and part of where he got the accent from.
He was pretty method on this, man, almost like to a De Niro extent. Oh, another cool thing about Stephen Bauer, also in this movie, not for a long time, but we also see Mark Margolis. Now, Mark Margolis is, along with Stephen Bauer, in Breaking Bad as Hector Salamanca. And of course, Stephen Bauer is Don Eladio. I know you watch Breaking Bad. I don't think I need to even check on that. But it's just so cool. The two of them were in Scarface. The two of them end up in Breaking Bad. And Margolis was just like the assassin, Shadow. He's supposed to blow up the congressman's car. And he never
Right.
gets to. He
Right.
never gets to press that button until 28 years later. He does get to press the button and blow somebody up. He gets the Fring ding and eliminates Gus Fring. It's only 28 years, but he finally gets some payoff, finally some closure, not getting to push that bomb button.
Thank God. And not only did he get that, but he got shot. He got taken out. So in Scarface.
Yeah, it's an honor to be shot in Scarface, man. I mean, it was great. Every extra in that movie was probably. You see that? That was me, man. I got shot.
I think you're right. That was a badge of honor on that.
That would be an honor to get blown away in Scarface, man. Who else we got here? Oh, Michelle Pfeiffer, amazing. And this is like right off of Grease 2 in 1982. Just like bam, like from that to Scarface, like what a leap. And she's amazing in this. Did you know all the other actresses who they were considering for the role of Elvira?
No.
Oh, let me run them off for you because they're pretty amazing and pretty fascinating to consider what they could have done with the role. All right, we had Glenn Close, we had Carrie Fisher, Sharon Stone, but my favorite has got to be Sigourney Weaver. Because we got Sigourney Weaver in this movie, man. Imagine the climactic ending gun battle. Okay, you shoot the aliens, but I shoot the illegal aliens, okay? That would be fantastic.
I would like to see that.
Sharon Stone would have went after him with an ice pick. Glenn Close would have boiled his rabbit. I don't know. So many things could have happened in this movie. Carrie Fisher, I don't know. She would have sent a distress signal. Help me, Mr. Sosa. You're my only hope. Get me out of this crazy kingpin coke ring marriage. Where does Scarface sit in your De Palma hierarchy?
Ooh, wow. It's definitely near the top. It's definitely one of my favorite De Palma movies. Of his genre crime films, it's easily the top. And then of his De Palma thriller movies, I like Body Double a lot. They're probably my two favorite De Palma movies. But I like The Untouchables a lot. I like Carlito's Way. I like a lot of his films.
There's so many. I mean, he's done such a great, range of films, and a lot of them are worth revisiting, talking about. Some of them are like really good to poke some fun at, but overall, like they're just really well-made films with a lot of style. And whatever he's done, it has his signature on there usually.
And Carrie, one of his great early films, horror film.
Well, what about the Fury? That's another underrated movie. The Fury is amazing.
I think a lot of De Palma movies are underrated. The Fury, he didn't really like The Fury that much. I think there's some great sequences in it.
Yeah, it was not a perfect film, but it had like all the elements there. They just didn't really maybe gel the way they should have. Not enough split screen. I don't know. Something was missing.
Kirk Douglas and John Cassavetes in the same film. I mean, that was kind of extraordinary. And John Cassavetes exploding at the end.
Yeah, we remember that. I think that's the one part that I taped. It's like I want to watch this over and over again. It's like the best blowing up guy until Scanners came along. That was like the blow up guy to end all blow up guys.
But of the really early stuff, I'd say definitely visit Sisters is really worth seeing, and Phantom of the Paradise. Yeah. Oh, and also Casualties of War is underrated. Sean Penn, Michael J. Fox.
I've been meaning to get to see that one too. There's just been so many. I think Platoon, stole its thunder. Oliver Stone. I think they're like buddies, but they're also like competitors. Oliver Stone and De Palma always got something going on, like a parallel or whatever.
They had kind of a similar, I guess a similar vibe in their films. Some of their films, for sure, very masculine, some crossover with the war films. But De Palma definitely staked out like his own unique territory. But you're right about Platoon. I think Platoon did kind of steal thunder from some other movies. Definitely we're seeing Sean Penn's insane in it.
Well, yeah, Sean Penn is intense. I think maybe nobody was really ready to accept Michael J. Fox like in a war movie. Just too much sitcom memories and like Alex P. Keaton or Marty McFly. Like I just can't buy it, man. Like I'm gonna go Back to the Future and stop Vietnam from ever happening. I just don't know. But I want to watch it. I know it's supposed to be a great movie. I would watch it. I will. Don't listen to me.
While we're talking filmmakers, then is this pause moment. Who's a huge fan of De Palma is Tarantino.
I guess so, yeah, because his technique might have some of those elements. And yeah, I just did a Tarantino episode recently, and I didn't talk about De Palma at all.
That's why I was bringing it in.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that in. And if there's like a certain moment of Tarantino's that is like distinctly De Palma influence, what would you say that would be?
I'd say a lot of stuff in Tarantino is heavily De Palma influenced. If you look at even like just think about Reservoir Dogs, like the whole opening 360. You get that kind of shot in several De Palma movies. In fact, it's the opening shot of Scarface.
Right, yeah, the 360 while he's getting interrogated. Yeah.
Being interrogated. There's the whole slicing of the ear in Reservoir Dogs, which was very shocking, and you've got the whole chainsaw moment in Scarface. In fact, Tarantino said that he felt like he learned to make movies by watching Scarface. Also, if you see here's some more trivia for you. If you see the very first Tarantino movie, which is not Reservoir Dogs.
Oh no, I got to redo my entire episode now. I'm missing some info here. Come on, tell me now.
The movie that he made, the movie that he half made before Reservoir Dogs, is called My Best Friend's Birthday. He co-wrote it and directed it and stars in it, and only half of it survives. There was a lab fire that destroyed half the movie, and there's like a 30-some minute version that remains. You can find it online.
All right, but yeah, you can't expect me to include that in his filmography. I would love to see it, though, yeah.
The reason I bring it up in this conversation is because there's a whole long, extended conversation in that movie about De Palma.
Oh, then yeah. And was that the part that survived the fire now, or is that I'll never get to see that?
The character is telling he had just seen Dressed to Kill. And he's this extended monologue about Dressed to Kill. Anyway, it's worth seeing.
And I have to see Dressed to Kill first, or I won't even understand the monologue. That's cool. All right, yeah, I will check that out.
If you watch a lot of Tarantino, like certain sequences are very De Palma-esque to me. I feel like Tarantino learned how to do suspense sequences from De Palma.
You got to learn from the best, and he was able to watch whatever movie he wanted to, working at a video store, so he could just like see the whole De Palma filmography and use that as his homework assignment that day. As far as De Palma goes, we have so much ground to cover, but we're running out of time, I think. But we could talk about you real quick, maybe just tell us about your film projects, what you've been up to, what we should be looking out for.
Well, I'm putting together a crime comedy. My first feature, it's called Surefire. It's about a con man who stumbles into becoming a movie producer when he's threatened by these gangsters. It's a lot of fun. We made a short film version, a proof of concept version that did really well. And now we're putting the feature together. And you can see the trailer for the short film version at surefiremovie.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and it's either hashtag #SurefireMovie or @SurefireMovie.
We're going to do that. Can you tell anybody where they can check out? I really loved your short film, What's Eating Dad.
And What's Eating Dad, you can see on Amazon Prime. It's a fun, crazy horror comedy that we made about what's the pitch there? It's sort of like Shaun of the Dead meets Meet the Parents.
Yeah, that's a good pitch. Yeah.
How I would describe that. It's a lot of fun. That's a film we made a few years ago, but the main thing that we're working on now is Surefire, and doing a couple of other things as well. I've optioned a novel that I'm also adapting, kind of a surreal, darkly comic novel that I'm adapting into a script right now. But Surefire and What's Eating Dad are out there. You can either check out the short for What's Eating Dad or the trailer for Surefire.
That's awesome, man. I do hope that at some point, somewhere not too far down the road, I get to do some Missing Real episodes on your works and talk about your films as if you were, you're in the league there, with Spielberg and Cronenberg and Goldberg. That would be fantastic.
I will be circling back with you, Mike.
I will too. This whole De Palma episode's been great, but we're gonna make sure it's ready to go and we can play it for the world and listen to it while we're all sitting in our quarantine bunkers here, waiting for this damn pandemic to be over. But it was really great having you, and I hope we can do another one someday.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, and wish you well and success with everything. And before I sign off, just remind everyone out there who's listening that podcasts are important. And, whoever's making a podcast, we're trying to do you a service and help you out there. You need people like me so you can put your fucking headphones on and listen to podcasts. So say goodnight to the bad guy. And remember, the world is yours. All right, thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, listeners, and listen some more for the next one coming soon. Adieu.